Welcome to the Happy Black Woman Podcast, where we're on a mission to empower women to transform their lives through personal development and entrepreneurship. We bring you all the information, inspiration, and motivation you need to create a life of happiness, success, and freedom. Now, please welcome your host, the happy Black woman herself, Rosetta Thurman.
Hello and welcome back, ladies, to the Happy Black Woman Podcast. I'm Rosetta, and I am delighted to be here with you today with another amazing guest. And today's guest is Miss Charlene Dior, and it really has been a pleasure to get to know Charlene because she has such a dedication to her own personal development that she is an inspiration to all of us happy Black women who are on that same path. So let's welcome Charlene.
Thank you, Rosetta. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad you could take the time to do the show. And I really just wanted to tell everybody before we get started how I know you, because there's so many people that I meet in my travels and in my networking. And then there's people that are really part of my inner circle, you know, within our Happy Black Woman programs. And Charlene is a part of our Happy Black Woman Mastermind program. And I remember when maybe the first time that we met in person, I think one of the things I was like, your name is really Charlene Dior. Like you sound really expensive. And I just, we were just talking about how she was building her coaching practice and all these kind of things. And to see her blossom so much from that conversation to like what she's got going on now with her brand and how she is showing up for women around the world is so inspiring to see. So I just want you guys to know that Charlene is a part of my inner circle, and I want to share her great work with all of you. So, Charlene, I know how awesome you are, but can you tell the ladies listening, a little bit about your mission and the work that you do?
Sure. So I'm a founder of From Caterpillars to Butterflies.com. And really, I'm on a mission to help women in particular grow into their full potential and to know who they really are. I believe that the purpose of life is for us to grow. And I think that we have a great example of that in the caterpillar. I say if God put a caterpillar here for the purpose of becoming a butterfly, like there's so much potential for all of us. And I think sometimes we miss the mark. And so I just want to help women grow into their full potential.
Mm-hmm. And there's so many ways that you could go about doing that. I mean, what's your process for helping women do that? I know that you have coaching. Like, how do you do that with women?
I do private one-on-one coaching, and then I also have some self-study resources available on my website as well. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, what level do you want to commit and work with someone else?
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to come full circle and start helping other women transform their lives. I know that you've gone through your own journey of transformation that's really inspiring with everything that you've done in pretty much a short period of time as well. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got to be where you are in terms of your own personal growth and how you decided to turn it into a business where you're helping other people do the same thing?
Sure. I have a twin sister. And, I really believe that throughout the years, life conditions us to just kind of forget who we are. And growing up a twin, I could totally relate to that. People were always like, why aren't you doing what she's doing? And why aren't you dressing how she's dressing? And so you really just go through this period of where you just don't know who you are. And I felt like I didn't know who I was at a time. And then you add on top of that a relationship that doesn't really fully align with who I am. And so I just really a few years ago felt so uncomfortable, so dissatisfied. And actually, it's kind of how this idea came from, because I was in the bookstore one day, just not feeling like life was fulfilling or enjoyable. And I saw a coffee mug that said, just when the caterpillar thought its world was over, it became a butterfly. And that quote really touched me. I bought that mug and I just realized like, I didn't know who I was. And this season of dissatisfaction was maybe me being in a cocoon. And so it was just my job to grow and to process and to break out of it. And so it really came from a place of just not being satisfied and not knowing how to get there. And I spent a lot of time in self-reflection. And I'm an introvert anyway, so I do that anyways, but it was really more purposeful introspection, just really figuring out like, who am I and what do I value and what do I want out of life? And I really just had to ask those questions of myself and then start to create the life around me that aligns with who I really want it to be.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So what are some of the things that you did, Charlene, specifically that helped you on your path?
So I'm really committed to personal growth. And I think that means going to seminars. I've been to several seminars throughout the years, reading a lot of books and really just defining what I believe in, defining what I value, defining for myself what life is supposed to be like. So it was really making a decision on what am I going to value and how am I going to show up in the world, and then learning and growing and studying from other people on how to make that a reality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's not something that is a natural first step for most people. It's like there's a lot of years often of complaining and feeling bad. And so was there a catalyst for you? That first seminar that you went to, you're like, something has to change. I don't like feeling like this. I want to change.
Yeah.
Did you see a flyer or you got what was it that was the thing that had you say, okay, I'm going to go out there and see what I can learn?
Sure. So, it was a flyer. It was make 20, whatever the year was, your best year ever. And so then I was like, I have to go to that event. And it was amazing. And it's really life-changing. And I did some of the same stuff that I'm talking about today. It's like really defining what I want to do and who I want to be and building out a vision for my future.
Mm-hmm. That is so important. And it's that step, and it sounds very simple to say, oh yeah, I went to a seminar, but I wanted you to say a little more about it, because there are so many women on the line right now that are like, yeah, I'm feeling the same way. And, how long do they need to sit and be thinking that way when they're maybe in their own town, different workshops they can go to, different events and things like that. And when you're in this place in your life, I actually don't believe that there's any bad workshop you can go to or any bad seminar or anything. It's just like when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So whatever you see that's available to you, it will help in the stage of your growth, because you just need some type of guidance and the answers will come from there.
Yeah. And, my first seminar was right here in my hometown. I didn't travel very far. It was right here in my hometown. It was a few $100s. And so it was a really easy investment in terms of time and money. I didn't have to get a plane ticket anywhere. So definitely they could find things right there in their own town, I'm sure.
Awesome. So let's fast forward a little bit, Charlene.
Okay.
I mean, you've done all this personal development, inner work on yourself. And if you're like me, I don't know if this is your experience, but for me, when I started, I said my journey of liberation and transformation, all these things started happening. I quit my job. I went natural. I was just a new woman, and people just started asking me questions about stuff, and it turned into services that I created. And all of a sudden I have this new business. It sounds like you were a little more intentional about it though. So tell me, how you came to have your business from caterpillars to butterflies.
A lot of my friends were noticing kind of what you're saying, that I was different, that I was changing. And a lot of them were really inspired by that. And they told me that. And so I just really thought that there was a space, and I still believe that there's a space in the world that I can fill. And I think that a lot of people in my circle, they weren't working on themselves. And why? And I think a part of it is because we're never introduced to this concept. And so I wanted to kind of be the one to fill the space and to teach other women that you can transform your life and you can get from feeling stuck and dissatisfied and unfulfilled to feeling fulfilled and feeling satisfied. But it's going to take some work on your part. It's not going to magically fall into your lap. So I just really wanted to be a part of changing people's lives, because I know it's possible, because it was possible for me.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I mean, I think in this process, what a lot of people find is that you not only figure out things about yourself, but it leads you to a new path in your career in terms of really getting clarity on what your purpose is?
Definitely. A lot of people they ask me, I don't know what my purpose is. How do I find it? And, you find it through your own journey. But if you never take your own journey, then you probably won't find it. So you have to lead with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. What was the piece that had you say, okay, I want to turn this into a business? Like, I'm going to be willing to help my friends, but, I'm going to be a stand in the world for this type of transformation. What was that decision like for you?
I'll tell you what kind of really put it all into motion for me. I was fired from my job. And so I didn't start this business because I needed money. I started it because the person who fired me, she kind of went through this process of always changing jobs. So she's changing jobs every 6 months, because she's always having problems in her work environment. And so what that really said to me is that we're just running from our problems because we're afraid to grow. And it just kind of hit home to me that we need a safe space to grow in. And that's kind of what this From Caterpillars to Butterflies is about. It's about a safe space to grow and to create your life so that you don't have to keep running and you can, stand firm and planted, but also be fulfilled and satisfied.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the space is so important to go through this process. Well, I want to know, and I think everyone else wants to know, like how they can get started with the process. So what are some steps that our ladies can take to really start to rediscover themselves and really see how they can start to transform their lives? If they've never done anything before, how can they get started?
I think the first step that anyone should take to really rediscover who they are is to separate yourself for a moment from other people. Have some space to yourself and really check in with yourself on what you're feeling, what things bother you, what things excite you, what things do you find yourself being drawn to, and what things do you find yourself being pulled away from. Like really check into your emotions and your thoughts and feelings. And when you kind of get to that place and you can start to dig deeper and say, why? Why am I feeling this way? And why am I dissatisfied with this? And then you can kind of start to peel back all the layers when you really just spend the time thinking and reflecting to figure it out. Because a lot of times, we're dissatisfied because we're living someone else's life. And other people will look at you and say, why aren't you happy? And it's because it's not your life. It's not your dream.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point that, even though we have all the things that should make us happy, quote unquote, right, if it's not what we really want, then it's not going to be fulfilling.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right. What else can we do?
Again, I'm a big proponent of personal growth. I think that you have to make it a lifestyle. And so you should always be trying to close this gap between where you are and where you want to be. And so that means reading things, going to events, journaling. Make your personal growth a lifestyle. And the more that you learn about yourself, then the more you're able to create this environment of fulfillment for yourself.
Yeah. So I know that your first tip was really create that space by yourself. So having alone time,
right?
It sounds like it's really important. And when you say, make it a lifestyle, do you have any suggestions for how our ladies can prioritize that? Do you have tools that you use to kind of say, okay, once a month I'm going to do this, or put things in your calendar? Do you have any suggestions for that?
Definitely. I think that you should have an annual plan, and then you can break it down into 6-month plans. That's my strategy is what's my growth plan for this year? And so you might have a growth plan for your business, for your marriage, for your family, whatever it is, and look at it from a year. It's a long enough time to kind of see some significant results, but then you start to break it down and then you know what milestones you need to hit. And you can just really think about, how do I need to grow? And then you go find the tools to help you to grow in that area.
Great. Cool. So what else can our ladies do in order to start the process of rediscovering themselves?
So I have a motto, I guess, is be interested in finding out if you're interested. And I think a lot of times people are waiting to know with absolute certainty what's the right path for them and what they should and shouldn't do. And I think that that's kind of what keeps us stuck sometimes too. But you don't have to know for sure. This is part of discovering who you are. Are you just going to just explore your interests? So when something is crossing your mind, like you don't have to know if I really want to do this, but you do have to move forward on it. And then you'll start to find out more about yourself and more about your purpose just by being interested in finding out more and finding out if you are interested or not.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you're saying instead of thinking about it and maybe like researching it, like I met someone recently that she was like, oh, I'm interested in this thing and I'm just researching it. And I was like, oh, well, why don't you do it? Why don't you just do it? And she was like, well, I need to do some more research. And so I think that's what we do. And so how can you kind of break through that fear of, well, I think I might want to do it, but what if I don't want to do it?
Right. You know, it's like going out on a date, right? Like you meet a nice guy, you're not going to marry him, but you might give him your phone number, right? And so I'm just saying, give your phone number to the things that interest you. You don't have to go marry it, but just be open to exploring it. And don't put pressure on yourself. It's okay if you get started and you realize this isn't really what I want. That's perfectly fine. So just explore your interest enough to find out how interested you really are.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. You know, really, really giving yourself permission to explore versus like having the pressure to have some sort of outcome. I think we think, oh, well, you have to be successful. We have to turn this into something. I can't explore this, you know, unless I'm going to make a career out of it or a business out of it. You know, what if I'm not good at it? Like all these different things that I think we pressure ourselves with. That's a great point.
Yeah. And you know, what I also tell myself is that I'm not pressuring myself. I'm just making a promise to myself. So the promise is just that I'm going to give myself every opportunity to create my dream life. And so if you just tell yourself that as well, like, there's no pressure. If I go take this course and I later think that I don't want to do this, it's fine. I'm just fulfilling the promise to myself that I'm going to give myself every opportunity to live the life that I want to live.
Great. I love it. Cool. Any other steps you want to share with our ladies who are listening?
I just want to let everyone know or encourage everyone not to sit on your dreams, not to sit on the things that you really want to accomplish for your life. I believe that the dreams that any of us have in our hearts, you know, no matter how big or scary they are, they're not the biggest dreams that we're ever going to have. And so if you sit on what you have now, you're never creating the space for something new. You know, like you're not going to lose 10 pounds if you can't lose 5 pounds. And so I really just want people to know that there's so much more for you, but you have to move forward on what's currently in your heart. You know, just stop sitting on your dreams, go for what you really want.
Mm-hmm. That is such a great point when it comes to your dreams, because I think the word dream itself, I know that you have your saying about dreams, that they're really, we talk about dreams as if they're really plans. They're not like far away. They're closer than you think kind of thing. So I love that you said that you'll never be able to hit the big things if you don't give yourself the space to do the smaller things. Yes. So that's beautiful. I mean, I think a lot of people hold that dream as if it's like, I have to do this before I die. And it might be, I want to write a book. And they wait 20 years to write the book. And then that's the only thing that maybe they do. When they could have written like 10 books and changed even more lives in the process.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, Charlene, I want to know, you know, since you do this now, you turn your passion into a business and you're talking with clients, working with clients and being able to be that catalyst in their life, in the life of the ladies who are in your tribe. What is it now that you do day to day to stay focused and productive on your goals? Because I know that when you're helping other people, when you're in the space, it's like almost you have to try even harder. You have to make even a bigger effort because now you're helping these other people. But at the same time, you have to continue on your own path to reach your goals. So what do you do on a daily, weekly basis that keeps you focused?
Definitely. So I am a big proponent of meditation. I'm actually certified in mindfulness meditation instruction. And so I really believe in the power of just quieting your mind. And so meditation is definitely a big one for me. Journaling is also a big one for me, especially working with you, Rosetta. I'm getting more consistent in my practice. And so that's a big one. And also, like, I'm just a planner. I know everyone's not a planner, but I'm a planner. I believe that, if I'm going to accomplish my goals for this week or for today, then I have to lay out my plan. I plan my work and then I work my plan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Wonderful. I love it. Well, when it comes to, your goals and staying productive and all of that, there's also this, I always say I have to literally like schedule in time for myself. Not that I don't want to spend time on myself, but I am so passionate about the work that I do and the people that I get to help. I get to work with women like you all the time. And it's just like some of my calls, they go over and I'm like, oh my God, I have another call, because I get so caught up in the work that I do. And then I'm like, okay, I have to make sure that I take care of myself. So what are some of the things that you do on a regular basis that feed you, that are basically your self-care?
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. When I first started, I wanted to be available all the time to everybody. Mm-hmm. And then I had to just limit my days. And so that's one of the first things that I do for my self-care, is that I don't talk to people every day anymore. I've limited my days and just make sure that I carve out my own personal time. Mm-hmm. And that's really important and sacred to me, to have alone time, to read, to reflect, to meditate, to pray. I love going to church. And so that's also a self-care thing for me as well. Mm. And then just downtime with family and friends and that sort of thing as well.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So on your journey, I know that you mentioned that you read a lot of books.
Yes.
So what would be, I know it's not easy, but if you could pick one that was like, one of the most impactful for you to kind of break through your limiting beliefs, your thoughts about what was possible, like that just, you read it and you're like, okay, I'm going for it.
Sure. So one of my favorite books is The Magic of Thinking Big. I read that book a few years ago and I loved it so much. I bought everyone a copy for Christmas. And it really goes along with what we've been talking about today. It's like, you have to think big about your life. If you have a small dream, you're going to have a small life. It's magical to think big about what's possible for yourself. And so that book really helped me to shift my thought process around what I can do and who I can be.
And who's the author of that?
I can't think of his name right now.
I hate that. When I'm on a podcast, I want to interview, and I'm like, wait a minute, like my mind goes blank when I do the author. Well, we'll get the link on the show notes for the book, The Magic of Thinking Big.
Yes.
But it sounds amazing, and I don't think anyone's ever mentioned that book on the podcast, so it's a new one.
I love it.
Yes. Yeah. So, as you've been going through this process of really building your business and turning it into, turning your passion into something that can help other people. What is, if you had to look back, knowing what you know now, what would you say to that woman who's listening and she was where you were like 6 months ago, a year ago, and she's wondering if she should get started, how she can get started, can she really do this? Like all the thoughts that go through your mind as you're going through this process. What piece of advice would you give her, the woman entrepreneur who's just starting out and she wants to turn her purpose into a business?
Rosetta, I would tell her to get started and to stay started. It's going to be a journey regardless of what. And I think a lot of people kind of hem and haw over that. But the faster you get started, the sooner you'll be able to make this difference and to live in your purpose. And so my biggest piece of advice is just to get started and then stay started. Don't stop and start and take breaks and, hang out here. Just really, if you believe that what you're doing and what you believe in is going to make a difference in the world, then, there's no reason to keep it to yourself. So just really just make the leap and just stay there, stay on the journey until you're living the life that you want and you're making the difference that you want to make.
Mm-hmm. I love that you said, stay on the journey until pretty much you get to where you are, because I think a lot of people they give up too soon. Yes. And that's just, there's no good way to say it. You give up too soon. And if you give up too soon, of course, you're not going to see the results that you want. And I think you've seen yourself go through a process where you're starting out and you're seeing a little results, and then you're seeing a few more and a few more. And now, I mean, your Facebook page is amazing. Your email list is growing. So many things, great things happening in your business. You have an awesome Facebook group, and people are being drawn to you every day. But it wasn't always like that, right? You had to go through this process. So I love that you mentioned that, the importance of continuing, like perseverance, like continuing to keep going, even if you don't see that much results in the beginning, because it's beginning. You just, there's not much going on.
But it's hard. It's hard. And that's why that's the advice that I would give, because I've been there and I've wanted to throw my hands up. And so luckily I didn't. But, you know, I just want women to know that you can do it, maybe not in a year, you know, who knows what the timeline is, but if you stay on the journey, then you're going to get there.
And then it's like, well, the timeline doesn't matter, because this is what you're going to do anyway in your life. I feel like someone asked me, like, what would you do if you're not doing Happy Black Woman? I'm like, I don't know. I would just do Happy Black Woman Part 2. Like, I don't, this is just what I'm meant to do. There's no, like, if it doesn't work out, then I'm going to do something else. This is what I'm meant to do. So there is no, I don't have a concept of if this doesn't work out. I just don't. What else am I going to do? Like, there's nothing else that I was born to do. So I would just, I guess, you know, sit on a stoop and like be a beggar. I mean, that's the quote by Khalil Gibran. I think it's that work is love made visible. And if you cannot work with love, but only with distaste, then it's better that you sit and beg for alms, something like that. You know, if you cannot work with joy, if you can't do what you love and enjoy the work that you do, then it's better for you to be a beggar on the street than to do something that you hate and complain about it. That's how I feel.
But we do that though, right? We do things that we hate and we complain about it.
Yes, exactly. But I'm like, there's nothing else. If you have a purpose and, you know, you're like us and you're like, you know, there's something that you're meant to do in the world, like just do it. And it doesn't matter how long it takes, because people work for jobs for 10 years and just waiting for that promotion, and they will wait. So if it's your purpose, like give your purpose the same honor and respect that you give your job. If it's what you're meant to do, then just keep doing it. And it doesn't matter how long it takes to get to where you want to be, because you're going to do it anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, I love this conversation. It's so empowering. And that's why we do the podcast, because I want ladies to kind of have a peek inside of the kind of people that I get to be around and the people that they may not have met in our tribe yet. And so definitely I want everyone to be able to stay in touch with you and continue the conversation. So how can we stay in touch with you, Charlene? Where can people go to get more of your wisdom?
Sure. So you can find me at www.fromcaterpillars-to-butterflies.com. That's my website there. And if you're interested in talking further with me, then you can go to www.transformwithcharlene.com and start the conversation for us potentially working together.
Awesome. Great ways for you to stay in touch with Charlene and get on her email list and make sure that you don't miss any of her amazing resources or trainings that she has coming up. So thank you again, Charlene, for being on the show. It's been a pleasure talking to you and sharing you with my tribe.
Thank you, Rosetta. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, ladies, if you have not taken advantage of all the other podcast episodes that we've done for free, then you need to go back and listen to all the previous episodes by going to happyblackwomanpodcast.com, where you can listen to all the other episodes and get notified when we release new ones. So until next time, have a beautiful day. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Happy Black Woman podcast. If you want all the show's notes from today's episode, go to happyblackwomanpodcast.com. Plus, we'll send you a copy of Rosetta's free life mapping workbook. We look forward to empowering you next time. And until then, do something this week that makes you happy.